Welcome, everyone. Another Friday here. So excited to be here. I am Jan Jeremias, one of your hosts today, and I'll introduce myself, even though all of you know me, but whoever may listen may not. Um, I've had a lifelong curiosity about health and healing, which has quietly shaped my path, and that began over 35 years ago and has evolved into a deeply integrated approach, one that brings together science, lived experience, and a genuine love for holistic well being. And for the past 20 plus years, I've been weaving my background in clinical research with practices that support the whole being, body, mind, and emotional landscape, and guiding both people and their pets towards lives that feel more vibrant, connected, and sustainable. At the heart of all my work is a simple intention to help everyone make sense of their well being in a way that feels approachable, personal, it's not complicated, it's not overwhelming, just thoughtful. Um, Taken this avenue and this approach into a lot of different avenues of my life and a lot of different avenues of my work, and joined Mary Jane. I think it's probably over 3 years ago. And together we've created this space and others with a divine mission to bring more kindness, presence, and creative expression into people's lives. And so, thank you, Mary Jane, from the bottom of my heart, and to all of you who joined us in this community and then um, brought your openness and your hearts to this space that we're creating together. So, thank you. And I'll pass it to you, Mary Jane.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. And just as we were sort of talking before we started recording, it was like well, for us, happy first week of spring. I know it's a little bit different for those joining us from Malaysia. It's not spring, I guess it's fall, but we are anticipating warmer temperatures as we go along. And I'm so honored to be here in presence with all of you. Um, as most of you know, I am a seasoned graphic designer and creative and the founder of MJ McQueen Creative Studio. And I am also blessed to be the co-founder of Spirit Born Imaginings alongside of Jan. As Jan was mentioning, we hold gentle, intentional conversations and meditative experiences that really invite you to slow down, soften, and to reconnect with yourself. This is a place of presence and compassion and curiosity. And this is where mindfulness, breath, energy awareness, and creative reflection come together to support self kindness and lead us on the path to inner transformation. There's really nothing you need to do here. You are welcome as an invitation to arrive exactly as you are in this moment. And I will share a poem as an invitation to listen inward and a sense of what's going to be present for us today. And this one is called Instructions on Not Giving Up, and it's by Ada Limon. And it reads, more than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains. It's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath. The aftermath the leaves come, patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us, a return to the strange idea of continuous living, despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it, the tree seems to say. A new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. Jan, hopefully you're not speaking. Or if you are, I can't hear you.
No, I was just pausing.
Okay.
Thank you for asking, though.
Hey, we've both done it, so.
So, if you have not heard of Ada Limon, I would recommend you look her up. Poet laureate a few years ago. Um, Amazing poet, obviously, or I feel she is. And so, welcome everybody. We welcome you to not just a moment in time, the nature of emergence. This gathering is an invitation to gently shift how we see growth, to recognize that what appears as a single moment of clarity, change, or becoming is so often the culmination of many quiet steps, reflections, and unseen movements. Beneath the surface, so much is already in motion. Thoughts are forming, awareness is deepening, something within you is organizing, softening, and preparing to rise. Here we honor that hidden process, the pauses, the questions, the subtle inner shifts that don't always have words yet. This is a space to step out of the pressure to arrive and instead become present to the steady, grounded unfolding that is already happening within you. Through reflection, shared experience, and gentle awareness, we begin to sense that emergence is not sudden at all. It is layered, intentional, and deeply alive beneath what we can see. So take a breath, arrive fully into this moment, and allow yourself to witness not just what is visible, but all that is quietly becoming. Because this is not just a moment in time, this is the nature of emergence.
Such a beautiful reflection, and it's so appropriate thinking about emergence, especially in these climates. It is the season for us of emergence where things are starting to grow and come back to life after a season of being dormant and sleeping, or hibernation for some animals, of course. But it's just such a beautiful reflection. So thank you, Jen.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you all. But yeah, it is. It is the season, or even like we say, animals hibernate. I mean, I feel like, especially after this winter, I feel like
We've
I've
been
gone
hibernating.
through, we've been hibernate. I mean, I feel like I've gone through a season of hibernation, to some extent. Um, which in some ways, is always kind of nice when you're kind of housebound because of the snow and you can't get out. And you're like, I kind of like this, like I could stay here without leaving. But yeah, that is definitely how it emerged, how it feels
Mhm.
once the weather just warms up a little bit. And I was actually talking to I think I was talking to my mom yesterday, and we were talking about just like you have one warm day or a little bit warmer weather and the number of people you see out, like even in my neighborhood, like everybody goes out and walks
Mhm.
because it's kind of like I'm at a few meetings last week with people like networking and things, and a number of people with kids were like, "Oh gosh, I'm so excited because having three kids in the house for the last like 3 months, they need to get outside, they need to run and everything." And so it was so funny. They were like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know that my house will ever be the same," and not because of the weather, but because of my kids. So yeah,
It sounds like the
one of my
parents needed
friends,
to run.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But I think as we reflect on this whole idea of emergence and hibernation, I think that's the way, so much of life is. I think so much happens beneath the surface and before that moment of what we think, well, I made this decision exactly at this point. And I've had things like that in my life where it feels like, okay, well, I just got to this deciding point. And I think often before I started having these conversations with you all and doing all this work and writing as much as I've been writing, um, all of a sudden it was the realization that so much had been happening up to that point. all the processing, all the, reflections, all the conversations between, what I would console like my heart family, all you guys, and just the little sparks of ideas and thoughts and perspectives that would come in. And so much had been happening before what I might have considered that, that peak moment or that moment when I took the next step or someone takes the next step. And we look at it as being so finite, it like happened at this exact time because that's how it feels. Because we know the day that we did something. And sometimes life gives us moments like that, right? It gives us an exact moment in time when something happens. And then we're forced to take, it almost feels like we're forced to take the next step. Like we don't really have much of a choice.
You just reminded me of sometimes life gives us lemons, and making lemonade. So it's like it's really true. But yeah, I mean there's a certain um beauty in that, in the sense of emergence, even just for the perspective now, yeah, it's like what you were describing, where the parents were like, we all need to escape this hibernation. But it's a season for us where we're looking, you know, I haven't been able to the last few days, but I'm like always looking in my little garden bed to see if my tulips and daffodils are starting to poke through the soil. I suspect they probably are because it's been milder, but I just love that whole perspective of just wait. It's like we're waiting for things to grow. It's amazing how we can be impatient with ourselves when we're growing, but we can be really patient when we're waiting for the flowers to grow.
And actually, I remembered the other conversation I was having was with Kimberly, who's often on this call yesterday. And I was talking about that. And she said, you could buy a plant and you would get that kind of spring feeling. So I
True.
said to her, yeah, I could, but I'm looking for it outside. Like I want to see it out in the natural world. Like, I mean, not, I can bring it inside and I often do that. I love flowering plants and stuff, but I want to like go out and see it like emerging from the ground and seeing it creep up from the earth. And I'm also too like I'm on this constant like search. Like I keep on going out on every car ride, on every walk that I take. I'm like looking. I'm like, that's why when I saw the buds on the trees this morning, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, there are buds on the trees. Like a little bit of emergence, kind of thing. Because
Uh,
I was so excited. But yes, yeah, thank you for the eyes, Jason, because you're making me smile. Because that's how I feel. It's like this little investigation or this little exploration every time I go out and I look for signs of spring. And I think that, often when we are going or when we're processing something, I think we do the same thing. I
mhm.
think if we can get quiet enough, we'll see like it's kind of like we look for those little moments of growth or for a moment of transition or for a way we responded differently to a circumstance or a conversation. So we look for those kind of glimmers or little um, like specklings of like possibility or, a sign of growth that we've made. So yeah. So Seamus, please.
Yeah, thanks, John. And again, thanks for a lovely poem, Mary Jane. Yeah, some of the words you mentioned there, like about gradual, it's like the word emergence itself, like is a beautiful word. Like Otto Scharmer uses this an awful lot. Joseph Jarabowski in Source talked about emergence and creating space to invite to emerge what is destined to emerge, basically without forcing, and opening that door. And again, this is where the other couple of words you mentioned there about a gradual process, a layered process, is kind of the ease. And rather than forcing, it's the complete opposite. It's the power and experience of allowing the leaf just to emerge in its own good time. And as humans, we seem to now in a modern society, we seem to spend so much time forcing and pushing and not allowing, things to emerge in their own good time, including our own development and creating space for ourselves to, as you mentioned it, Jan, like it's a very gradual process of and little pennies dropping, every day or every week or every month or every year that allow us to kind of really create the space to appreciate something that we kind of hide and diminish or don't engage with. And then over a period of time, whatever that is for our own individual journeys, we come to the point or the threshold to, okay, the big penny finally lands and drops after many small pennies, landing from within that finally give us I suppose, the courage to maybe express an idea or a thought or show up in a way that we felt we couldn't before. And I think that's part of emergence and that experience of emergence and of allowing ourselves to be ourselves. It's through that whole experience as you described it, like that layered, gradual, very natural process of just finding ourselves through being at ease with ourselves, noticing what's going on within, and then finally through a very patient, I think we use the word patient, that patient process of compassion and making sense of, our own connection with ourselves, our connection with other people, and finding the balance that, and the timing then just becomes right when we allow our true selves to emerge and experience the kind of a joy, I suppose, the joy in the poem of the leaf being the leaf that it wasn't, that it was curled up in a little bud, and then it's a great kind of metaphor for that journey you described, John, around gradually but slowly but surely, almost invisibly, we're growing and um towards the final day when we become the leaf or we become the butterfly who leaves the cocoon, and then we're experiencing the liberation of the joy we bring through being the leaf or the butterfly or the rose, whatever it is, that comes with the journey of emergence over whatever period of time, whether it's a lifetime in human terms or over a springtime for the leaf or whatever. So I think it's just a lovely metaphor to remind us to be patient and kind to ourselves, I guess, as well.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing in the compassion element, Seamus, because I think that's so important because we are, as human beings, we're very impatient, especially in our society now where, everything should happen yesterday. And this whole, aspect of immediate, you know, or how quickly can it happen? And I remember once, went to see went to hear the Dalai Lama, who spoke in Central Park. And I remember somebody stood up and asked him, can you tell me how long it's going to be till I reach enlightenment? It was like, can you give me is it going to take me 5 months, 6 months to a year? And, it was so funny. And it might have been planted, it might have been somebody who was kind of, somebody who was in the audience and intentionally was asked to ask that question. But it was just such a great reflection of when am I going to arrive already? And a little bit less about the constant unfolding. And as you were speaking, Seamus, the one thing that came to mind in some of the things that I've been processing and going through this week is experience, based on our own experiences. And so I think that whole gradual thing seems to resonate so deeply with me because it's the kind of thing where, it's based on the experiences I have. And something like that cannot be rushed, because the experience hasn't happened yet. So I look at what I'm going through this week and I'm reflecting back on, past experiences and how much different um, I feel going through what I'm going through now based on that experience. And that's part of the whole processing and the pausing and the patience and the compassion and to let it evolve or let it happen the way it's going to happen. Not that that necessarily says it's going to be easy because, if you look at plants, and that have the ability to kind of sprout in amongst like rocks, like which is always miraculous to me. Like they don't need much sometimes to sprout up, where you'll see a flower in the middle of like two slabs in the pavement, and you'll be like, and it finds a seed and it finds water and it grows. And so it's not always easy for that to happen. I mean, it's a lot of effort for that to happen, but it's possible.
Yeah, that's it's so true. And I loved how Seamus was talking a little bit about happiness and joy and stuff. And I loved the article when we were preparing. The article was speaking about the difference between happiness and joy and how happiness is really something that comes from external conditions, when things sort of align and for what we are expecting, etc. But I love the whole nature of thinking about joy as something that we can cultivate. It's more enduring things that, really can, grow, through our presence and gratitude and sometimes acceptance. Um, and it doesn't and joy doesn't depend on life being perfect either, right? So it's just I loved how, bringing that in is really, it's all part of the whole part of emergence as well, right? So I love that, and so I loved how Seamus brought the idea of joy into it, and I love that. Yeah, joy is deeper state of being that is not dependent on external circumstances. Exactly, Jen.
Mhm. Yeah, from a wonderful article by talking with Brene Brown talking about vulnerability and how joy is probably one of the most challenging of emotions for people to cultivate, which I thought was really interesting. And our next workshop, brings in joy for Spirit Born. And then our next program with Darlene is also, we're talking about joy. So it seemed to be truly, serendipitous that this was kind of showing up. But it's so true. It almost feels like we don't feel like we deserve joy. We have this great fear of losing it. So it's kind of like I'd rather not go there at all because, it's going to be fleeting and it's going to go away. And so I don't have to experience the loss of it. Then I might as well not participate in it at all. And so, and I thought about that a lot. And I think if you grow up with, religion is funny in that way. It's like, don't say it out loud because it's going to go away, or don't praise it or acknowledge it because, you know, so superstition comes along with that too.
Yeah, it is funny how how no matter what color you come from, there's those interesting things, those things that we've absorbed from various sources. But it is funny. I like how you called it superstition because sometimes it is.
I mean, the whole idea of like, we call it in Hebrew, it's say, or it might be Yiddish, but I think it's Hebrew, an ayin hara, which means the evil eye. The
Mm,
fact that, you don't say certain things because you're going to attract negativity or the contrary. So you
yes,
don't outwardly praise, you don't outwardly acknowledge. You might acknowledge in private or with, in prayer kind of thing, but you don't boast, I guess, about things like that. But it's different to be boastful and it's different to experience joy, right? As we talk about
exactly.
it. It doesn't mean that you can't experience and value and treasure joy and try to, live a life that's really um, deep and meaningful.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's like anything, the process of emergence, and nobody promised that it was going to be an easy path. It quite often is not. But it's just, I think just allowing that space for us to grow and you know allowing it ourselves to experience that vulnerability because that is the way. Wow, I sounded like the Mandalorian. I don't know if anybody knows who that is. I'm like, this is the way. It's not quite what I meant, but yeah, it's just yeah, it's really it just allowing the time and the space with a sense of awareness for the meaning to come.
Yeah, I shared this quote because there's something about, like you said, the journey, and it's not always easy. And, and I had read one in preparation. Obviously, we always read articles, but this is a quote by Paulo Coelho, who said, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place.
Ooh,
And so I just,
I love
and so
that.
I loved it because I thought to myself, I think, we spend a lot of time, becoming, and that's probably when we're, I mean, he talks about in the article about, that's what's happening when we're young.
Hmm.
Um, is when, we're in the whole process of becoming and figuring it out and kind of meeting expectations and outside influences and society. And then the whole second half of our life is the unbecoming, is the unraveling of all that so that we get to the probably who we were to begin in the beginning. And it seems like they talk a lot about like you go back to who you were as a child. So basically, like who you were before you were like 7 years old. And that made such, I mean, that to me resonated so deeply because I think I look at the stuff that I love to do now and the things that kind of light me up. It's exactly what I loved to do when I was a kid. Exactly.
It,
And I
it,
felt like, you mean I had to go through the last like how many years and unravel all that to get back to where I was.
yes, that's why I put the little spiral shape up
Yes,
because it's like
exactly.
it's so true. It's like really, it's like I've been on this path for how long and what I'm right back where I started.
Right. Exactly.
But it's yeah, it's well that's the dream, right? Is to be able to get back to where you started because a lot of people um don't, right? They continue to
Hmm.
live a life that's maybe not aligned or authentic to them, um, because that's what they've been or what they've been told by the world or other people or whatever the case may be. It's just, um, that they should be or how they should act or what the true purpose of life is. And so it's a blessing to be able to be on a path of growth whatever that looks like, to be able to come back to where we started, Jan.
And not to like, I mean, not to belittle the whole experience but I think that, in yoga and a lot of other, I think, Eastern modalities, they talk about the world being a series of opposites, really. That we don't really know one thing unless we know another. Like we don't know light unless we know dark. And I don't think we know who like we don't resonate or we don't really identify with who we are until we extend ourselves outside of that. And then we all of a sudden we go back and we are kind of like, oh, okay, this isn't me or this is me. But I think it's like that with people. Like you spend a lot of time trying to belong somewhere that you really don't belong. Only, and I think that, in the practice of yoga, we always talk about, all the binding poses and all the stuff that you do that we really like maybe really engage. And the only reason, and part of the reason you do that is so you know what it's like to relax and to breathe and to release because you don't know, and on a physical sense, you don't even know what that is unless you actually do the opposite. And so, just like this season, I mean, I don't know that we would truly appreciate and know spring unless we had a time of dormancy and a time of where everything falls off and everything, the leaves all go. Like it would not have the same. energy, that same flavor, if we didn't have that previous season of fall.
I think it's
Yeah,
back to experiences as well, Jan, isn't it? Like you mentioned like experience, and I mean I think that's what we're talking about here is and Paulo Coelho maybe talks about that. I mean, so that's what he wrote about in The Alchemist, basically, is the whole story of discovery and um experiences. And I think a key word is noticing, like which is a kind of essential part of, my own journey, I suppose, is um being open to kind of experiencing everything and then noticing how that's landing with you, like inside yourself. And that's where the gradual part of the whole process, and the deep value of the whole process of all the experiences the conditioning, maybe, that, the influences, the expectations, pushing, the forcing, the shoving that so many of us experience, like in our kind of Western lives. And then the space on the other side of that to actually notice, well, how is this landing within me, the inner side of me, this external push and shove and forcing and conditioning and all the rest that kind of jars with me. But I could never feel I could say that. And I think that's the secret, basically, of building the bridge between on making sense of all the experiences is actually to honor the noticing and how does it actually feel. And I think that's part of the process of, making sense of the outside, the conditioning, the perspectives, and the experiences um, of noticing this doesn't feel right or this feels uncomfortable when a certain person seems to be pushing me in this direction. And maybe it feels so right when another person I engage with shares a perspective or a personal experience that they're sharing from their inside, and that resonates. And I think these are all the little kind of the little lessons, maybe those small little pennies that contribute to eventually inviting us to um, like our true essence to emerge back to the word emergence, I guess, of this is what life experience is. It's actually the experiences, but more so it's the noticing and then the feeling of what resonates and what doesn't, that ultimately provides the invitation for us all to kind of be authentic in terms of not performing or playing the game, but playing our own internal game, allowing ourselves to be ourselves. That's all Paulo Coelho would say. That's all it's required of us, is to allow ourselves to be who we are, to share and express what we care about without feeling that we need to think about what we should say or how we should feel. And I think that's again what Paulo Coelho is talking about. It's allowing ourselves just to be ourselves, and that's much easier said than done in a world that so much honors the pushing and the forcing and the shoving and the inauthentic behaviors often that we feel certainly in the modern world. Maybe even our leaders are guiding us maybe in a very um, inauthentic way. We could maybe we could assert, and I think that's the journey, I suppose, is more and more people allowing themselves to operate from honoring all experiences and making up our own minds about what feels right, I suppose, from our inside out.
Thank you, Seamus, and I love that because I think that's so true. I think it's in that, it is kind of like in the noticing and in the pausing that we get to see that, and we do, um, and I think we can only do that if we don't feel, if we're not distracted, um, if we quiet down and we're not as well. I want to say if we're kind of um, step out of the noise. Uh, And I think the power, whatever the powers that be, I think that if you live in that space, people are very easily guided, let's say, not necessarily for their, maybe for the good of the powers that be, but not necessarily um, um, guided for what is best for them or maybe what is best for society. But I think people in power, you know, sort of guide people so that they maintain that power. Um, and then, and people basically, they don't want people to kind of own that and figure it out for themselves because then people aren't very manipulative or manipulatable. I think you get what I mean. I don't think they're not very easily manipulated. Let's try again for the third time. English is today my second language because I am, but yeah, but I think that it's really important that whole idea of honoring the noticing. And I think that, I was having this experience. I had an immediate like kind of like situation yesterday that came up because I got an email plus there was a post about the studio that I've probably been affiliated with for 20 yoga studio for about 20 years. Under the same woman who created it probably not long before I got there. And I used to go in person. Now I teach for them online, having moved. And I've been teaching that same class for probably, oh, I don't know, probably 12 or 13 years, um, every Friday at noon. And she's selling it. And my immediate reaction was like that gut punch of like, oh my gosh, like this is just, she's selling it to one of the other teachers. But it was that feeling like, oh my gosh, like what am I going to do? And it was just such a shock and it was such a like this unknown. And I love that class, obviously, after all that time. And I love my students. And I really paused and I said, okay, well, first of all, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to unfold and what's going to happen with the woman who I know quite well, the woman who's taking it over, Rachel. And let me see what unfolds and let me not rush to, catastrophize in my mind. But it was like that immediate like of pausing and noticing how I felt and being acknowledging whatever that was, like the fear and the sadness, like, and everything. Actually, Rachel did call me not that long after that. And we were chatting and I was pretty vulnerable with her. And I said when I got that first part, when I just read it, it was like, oh my gosh, like another stage, like another transition, another change. And I'm not in any way upset with the woman who owned the studio. I mean, she's done it for a long time. And so I can understand that totally. And then I just thought, okay, well, don't like just, you don't know what's going to happen. And so don't rush that. And there's also, amongst that, there's also infinite possibilities of really positive things that might occur based on this. But it was just such an interesting kind of like, like few hours where I was originally like, should I email right away? Should I respond? And then I said, whoa, 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 step back, take a breath, you know, let it unfold. But those are honest, like everyday things that happen to us all the time. And so, yeah, just to share that experience. Jason, please, you had your hand raised for a while.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, how you were earlier you talked about, the things that you love now is the things that you loved when you were a kid or a child. And I subscribe to the notion that we come into this world the day that we come into the physical flesh, we have all that we need. We have all the wisdom. We just don't have the communication skills. We know how to communicate, we just don't communicate verbally. And so we're taught to communicate, right? Whether it's, I mean, Mandarin or Spanish or English, right? We're taught to communicate in a way from the people that are caring for us as we come into this world, and that we have all that we know, we have all the wisdom. I mean, can you imagine if we showed up and could communicate verbally with all the wisdom we've gained from the, celestial side of the plane. But we're taught by people from their experiences, right? So we're molded, we're taught what to say, what not to say, how to act, how not to act. And then as we go through our journey, we start to question those things because it's this state of remembering, right? Remembering of who we are internally and being able to differentiate who we are in our own in specific personal gifts, because we all show up with different gifts. But we're taught other gifts, right, from people and their experience, and so it's like this challenge, this dichotomy of remembering who we are, and then as we get older and start to understand and gain, wisdom in this world, then we kind of go back to what we felt in those early years. And so it's just this cycle, right, of learning to evolve, learning to blossom, learning to grow into the things that we were given the moment we arrived. So it's just this wonderful cycle that we go through.
Thanks so much, Jason. And I'm of the same um, sort of the same kind of belief. Two things come to mind. There is a Jewish midrash, which is sort of like a parable or story that comes, and that we are born with that wisdom. Like we are born exactly with everything we need. When we are born, literally the moment we are born, an angel comes down and touches us right beneath our nose where that indentation is, and we forget. And then life is a series of unfoldings, you know, like that leaf unfolding in the palm. So, yeah, I grew up with that story. Um, and then I'm reminded of two other things that, my yoga teacher training, I remember my teacher saying that yoga is the practice of recognizing that basically you had everything you need to begin with. It's that, but it's getting back to that state of recognizing that you have everything that you need, that there is nothing missing, that we are not missing anything, and a practice of what we call um, polishing the heart. We polish the heart on a daily basis. It's kind of like taking out a cloth. That's what image that always came to my mind of um, taking out like a little rag or a little cloth and polishing the surface of your heart, which is really, that's the essence of who you are. Al, please.
Yeah, very interesting what you're saying. Because like what you're doing now, you're delivering so much, you're giving so much service and all that. So it comes to the message for this week, like what you're saying, the acorn. Acorn, there's no such thing as the acorn tree. So there's and actually is you can grow an oak tree from just an acorn. So and in North America there's 90 species of oaks. So all the oats have acorns. Yeah. So basically, this acorns is what we are growing, and the word acorn, the acronym for this week, is assessing circumstances and offering resources for the needs. So like what you're doing, the yoga that you're offering for people, with all your resources that you're giving out to people, you're pouring your whole heart out. So it's very wonderful that all of us are doing some sort of service to the people and your humankind. And it's so important that we see the needs of the others. And like what you're doing, Jen, is so wonderful, yeah, and also Mary Jane and Seamus and the rest, yes. So they're doing wonderful things in the world and pouring our heart out, growing from the acorn, which makes a lot of oat trees all around the world and everyone around us. So we're so blessed, this givings. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Al. Yeah, I mean, I really feel blessed as we open always, with the people here, because I think each one um, is offering some element of, has worked has come to this point through everything we've talked about in life, each one of us, and has kind of decided that they will share from their hearts and offer out something that is for, in service of others to take their own experiences and what they've learned and share it. Not in the fact that people are going to duplicate what you do, maybe to inspire people with thoughts, ideas, possibilities of what they could possibly do, um, based on what you share.
Yeah, I love that, Jan, and it is indeed a blessing, as we've been sort of talking about. It's like, the path to emergence, whatever that looks like for each of us. Um, it's wonderful to be able to be in community and to um, take in some of the ideas and um, just the feeling of community of walking the path together, as that phrase goes, we're just walking each other home. That is certainly the case in this community.
Absolutely. Um, I love that idea, and I've always loved that quote of walking each other home. Um, because as Jason mentioned, I mean, each person comes in with their own gifts
Hmm.
and their own unique combination of who they are. And in that way, not one of us is the same. We all have our gifts and our attributes that are positive things that we kind of bring a slightly different flavor than somebody else. You know, it's always a tinge, could be, even if people are similar, there's always a tinge of uniqueness, that kind of a unique outlook or a unique perspective, a thought, which is different. And that's really the power, as some of the readings is um, that one of the articles that we share, that we drew from this week, it was this feeling of like, each conversation as we come here is like the conversation comes from each person that's on today and shares, or even their energy, but shares something, whether it be their energy or words. Um, and that could not be recreated um, again. And if different people were here, it would have been created differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a beauty in that. I mean, I know, Jen, you and I have had this conversation multiple times as we set a theme or an intention for the conversation, and we do our research and we discuss it together and things like that. But it's true. It's whoever shows up for the conversation really makes it a miracle and magic in and of itself. Just because, yes, as you said, like it's its own perfect creation in that moment. And it's so funny that Darlene made a note in the chat saying how beautiful that the world would be boring if we were all the exact same. It was so funny because I unmuted myself to say something very similar to that. So it just was, guess, my birthday sister, right? Um, we we are on the same wavelength, apparently.
Yes, no, it would be quite boring
Yes, exactly.
if
But
we were all the same.
what a beautiful conversation as always today, and it's definitely uh, it's it really is a Jason today. A
Gift.
gift. I was just about to say it really is a gift to be here, and then the little gift floated by. I'm like,
I
okay.
know. I know. those little emojis every now and then. Like usually it's Al for me, and I just like it just makes me laugh mid-sentence.
He finds some pretty cool ones, I must say that.
Yes, yes, he does.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. Thank you for having this beautiful conversation. And as we know, because emergence is an ongoing process, I guess it's never ending, right? It's like that spiral again. So
Hmm.
and so I just love the conversation today. It was beautiful, uplifting for me anyway.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So should we move into the meditation?
I think it's a good time.
Okay. So take a comfortable seat or lie down in a way that allows your body to soften and settle. Let your hands rest easily. Even let them open and close a few times just to let them relax and let them soften. Gently close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Begin by noticing your breath. Don't change it. Just observing the natural rhythm of inhale and exhale. Feel the subtle movement in your body, the rise and fall, the quiet expansion and release. Just rest your attention there without force, just noticing, allowing your breath to move in and out as it should, as it is. And as you settle, imagine the surface of your life, the roles you play, the thoughts you've been thinking, the things that feel visible and known. And now gently begin to sense beneath the surface. No need to see anything clearly. Just feel into the idea that there are deeper layers within you. Quiet, subtle, stable. Layers where something is forming, where awareness is gathering, where something within you is beginning to take shape. You might ask yourself softly, what is there beneath my surface? What is quietly forming within me? And then listen, not for a loud answer, but for a feeling, a sensation, a whisper of knowing. There is no rush here. Emergence does not happen all at once. It is not a single moment, but the gentle unfolding of many moments, breath by breath, layer by layer. Trust that even now, something within you is shifting, organizing, becoming, even if you cannot name it yet, even if there are no words. Stay here for a few breaths, resting in that awareness. And as you do, allow this affirmation to settle within you. I trust the quiet unfolding within me. I honor what is forming beneath the surface. I am not rushing. I am allowing. What is meant to emerge will do so in its own time. Begin to deepen your breath slightly, feeling once again the body supported beneath you. Gently bring your awareness back to the room, to the space around you. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes, carrying with you the knowing that even when nothing appears to be happening, so much is already underway. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We appreciate each and every one of you. Just a few announcements. As always, the recording for this will be up on our YouTube channel, so feel free to share, like, comment if it resonates with you. Our next workshop for Spirit Born Imagining is May 2nd, Saturday, May 2nd. And that's really exciting for us, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, if you'd like to join us. We have a 4-week program coming up with Darlene. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the date. What was the date?
May 28th.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mary Jane. um, May 28th. I can say 2 Wednesdays in May and then 2 Wednesdays in June.
It's
That I knew, but
yeah,
I have a lot
but
up
it's
there in my head at
Thursday.
the moment.
It's Thursday this time.
Oh, it's Thursday. That's right. Thank you. That's right. We switched that. Wednesday was a conflict. So yes, thank you
Yes.
for yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
so everybody have a blessed weekend. Oh yes, and next Friday we are not going to meet. It is Passover and Good Friday, so we were going to take that Friday off. We'll be back the following Friday.
Yes.
So yeah, everybody have a good few weeks. And if you celebrate any of the holidays with family or whatever or whatnot, just enjoy.
Hmm.
And a happy birthday to Mary Jane, whose birthday is next week. So
It's
we'll
also
have to have
Darlene's on the
Darlene's
same
birthday.
day.
Yeah, it's also Darlene's birthday. So that's exciting. We'll have to sing happy birthday the following week.
Oh. Oh, look, a whole bunch of cakes just came
Hey,
up. I love that.
I know, and I'm looking and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so, they're just coming from all directions. See?
Yay.
Yay.
Bring
I'll
on
Have
the
a
take
cake.
it.
let them eat cake. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Have a good week, everybody.
Have a
Many
good week,
blessings.
everyone.